Ready.
So your advanced airway assist, you may go over your equipment.
Alright, so we're going to speak a little bit louder. This is the Advanced Airway Assist for Kapiolani Community College's Airway Station Scale for EMT. So I got to make sure that I have everything that I would need to provide adequate ventilations to this advanced cardiac life support patient. Bag valve mask, oxygen tank and regulator assembly. We have another positive pressure device called the Elder valve. And I have all my BLS adjuncts, MPAs and OPAs. As we move forward, I'm going to then continue to have my suction, and now diving into the ALS section. I'd make sure that I would have different sizes, varied sizes for the adult setting for the endotracheal tubes. I would also have a adult stylet. In order to check the pilot balloon and distal cuff, it would require a 10 cc or 12 cc syringe so that we can see the inflation and deflation of the tube. The cuffs both at the distal end and the pilot balloon. I need a tube extension so that we have some flexibility when the tube is placed into the patient with a colorimetric device. I'd also have my capnography attachment for the EKG so that I have continuous CO2 monitoring. After I check my tubes and then sterile packaging, I also check the intubation equipment, different sizes of blades and handle. So I have, this is called the Mac blade. I'm also looking for the light to be on tight and should be very bright and a white type of light. I'd have different sizes of the Mac blades. This is the Wisconsin blade. I'd also have various sizes of the Wisconsin blade in the adult category. And again, the bulbs are on tight, the light is bright and white. If for some reason you might need it, also have your McGill's forceps. With the suction of the ET tube, we also would have some type of suction in its sterile packaging to suction down the ET tube. If there was an event that we have to secure it, then we need to make sure that we have the Thomas tube holder, which is a commercialized product that we use to secure the oral tubes. And in case that we have problems with inserting the endotracheal tube, we'd have backup device. This is the combi tube. We have two different syringes and two different sizes for small adult and large adult, 80 cc's for this one, and 18 cc's for the pilot balloon. We would also have backup devices for different counties. We have a king tube, and in some cases we may have an LMA or a other type of supraglottic airway as a backup device.
You're dispatched to an unresponsive case. Upon assessment, your medic instructs you to prepare for endotracheal intubation of the patient. The medic tells you to prepare a Mach 4 blade.
And what size tube? Because here we have a Mach 4 blade. The Mach 4 blade is the curved blade, sort of like a macaroni and cheese. This is a 4 blade, as we can see the 4 on the back side of it. Making sure again the light is bright, tight, and white. And then go ahead and make sure we select the proper size tubes, 10 cc or 12 cc syringe, or 15, but not smaller or much larger, and then a stylet and have one size above and one size below, ready for the patient. Hopefully our BLS measures have been taken if the person had some kind of oropharyngeal airway or nasopharyngeal airway, and we're starting to assist ventilations. What else do you want me to do?
The medic is having difficulty with intubation. Explain how a dual lumen airway device may be used.
So if they're having trouble with the intubation, we might even assist with using a manual upward, backwards, right pressure or Burke maneuver to help to move the trachea in line so that when they're visualizing with the laryngoscope blade, that they're able to see the windpipe. Now if they took it out and they're asking for some type of backup measure, such as a supraglottic airway, the king tube, the combi tube, the LMA, these devices are placed and inserted orally with a blind insertion. So basically using a tongue jaw lift for the king tube. It comes in different sizes. We would use the proper size for the right adult. This is a smaller size. Here's a number 4, slightly bigger for the adult, and it basically is inserted with a tongue jaw lift and placed in. Again, just like we would do with the intubation before insertion, you want to just make sure that your tube sizes, and this will take about 60, 80, 70 to 90 cc's. So we basically would test these cuffs while they're in the package to make sure that they inflate and that they don't deflate. Anyhow, this is a blind insertion where the person would lift up and it's placed into the oral cavity. It falls in between certain areas of the landmarks. Patient then is, the tube itself is then inflated and it'll situate itself into place after the proper amount of air that's into the distal and the proximal cuff. It should occlude the upper airway and occlude the esophagus, and now we should be able to ventilate the patient to get a proper rise and fall of the chest.
State the contraindications for use of the supraglottic airway device.
So very good. So these devices have different utilization. The LMA is a lot easier to use, is much more practice to use. But if they have something called a gag reflex, so we put something in there and they start gagging, we don't want to cause vomit to come back up from the stomach. So any of these will cause that because we're just blindly inserting it down, which will cause a gag reflex. The other things is that if we have problems with perhaps maybe stuff that is caustic, things that they've ingested, and we cause this stimulation, they can come back up and then make the airway more problematic. If we don't have the right sizes of these devices, we shouldn't be also putting them in, and we need to be able to go back to our basic BLS maneuvers. Again, this is a blind insertion of backup airways, which usually at our level, at the BLS level, we're not using, but we're just supporting the ALS member by providing this. Any other questions at this station?
Lastly, state how to appropriately size the supraglottic airway device.
So again, there are two different sizes for, this is the combi tube, two different sizes for the combi tube, a large adult and a small adult. And so anybody over 5 feet would go up with the large adult to 6 feet, and then anybody below 5 feet would get the small. These ones here are written on the side, and there is a reference card that you guys can look at, but basically if you take a look at this, there's sizes 3, 4, and 5, 3 being the smallest for the adult, 3, 4, and 5, and there would be a purple one as well. So then we have sizes 3, 4, and 5, starting off with about 60, 70, 80 cc's of air to inflate these balloons. But we properly size this based on a weight dependent. So basically if they fall within the guideline, we always want to have also the two different sizes, because if we undershoot and it is too big and it causes an air leak and it's obstructing the airway, we take the larger one out and place the smaller one in. So it is, if you look at this here, it's telling you it's weight down. So it says patient grade 35 to 45, 6 feet. So 4 to 5 feet. So it's 4, 5, 6. That's what it was. 5, 6. 3, 4, 5, 4, 5, 6. 3, 4, 5, 4, 5, 6. 4 feet, 5 feet, 6 feet. 3, 4, 5. Sizes 3, 4, 5, 4 feet, 5 feet, 6 feet. Now, the city county in Honolulu doesn't use that, so they use this combi tubes. So if you work on Oahu, or you work with AMR, they're still gonna have the two different sizes for the combi tube. Any other questions? So securing the tube though, once you put this, the tube is secured, we would ask you to then, once they place in the breathing tube, and they verify the breathing tube by listening to the lung sounds, we're asking you to be able to disconnect the mask while they put in the breathing tube, attach up the tube extension and the colorimetric device, so that when they intubate, you can connect this up and then assist the ventilation so that they can start breathing and they can listen for positive lung sounds and negative epigastric sounds. Once this device is then is identified as in place, we expect that you'll be able to then put in the Thomas tube holder, which is the commercialized device that we use to secure this in. We start to ask that you try to remember that when we place in a tube, the size of the tube, 3 times that size would be the lip to tip. So that's how far down we want this tube to be. And you can see the increments and the numbers along the side here. So if this is a 6.0, 3 times 16, what would be that number? I mean, 3 times 6.
18.
18. So we look to make sure that we're around 18. If this is a 7 size ET tube, 3 times 7
21.
would give us 21. So we hope that at the lip, where the lip and the tube come out, that it's at 21 centimeters. That way, when we secure it here, and the patient is then connected back up, and now the tube is secure and we're ventilating for them, should this tube move up or down, migrate, we can identify if it moved because we identified the lip to tip. Okay, so, and then after we connect them up to this, connect up your Untitled CO2 waveform so that we can monitor each breath that we're giving the right amount of, we get the right amount exchange as far as carbon dioxide when they're breathing. Any other questions? Okay.